Welcome to Real World Peaceful Parenting, a podcast for parents that are tired of yelling, threatening, and punishing their kids. Join mom and master certified parent coach Lisa Smith as she gives you actionable, step-by-step strategies that'll help you transform your household from chaos to cooperation. Let's dive in.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast, today's episode of Real World Peaceful Parenting. I was up at the crack of dawn this morning. I washed my hair, and I am just so excited because we have a very special guest. I've got to get a Kleenex because I'm probably going to tear up here. We have a very special guest today. Today, I welcome my friend, my mentor, my sister, Susan Hyatt. Susan is an example of what is possible in the world. And Susan, I can't say thank you enough for being here.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me cry.
Well, I hope to.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so delighted to be on this podcast.
It's so exciting. Susan is my first guest, and this is not by accident. I have had Susan guest appearance planned for a really long time in my mind. And it's because, well, there's many reasons, but Susan has a long list of accomplishments. She has a very popular TED Talk, which I highly recommend. She's been on national TV and magazines, but I want to tell you what I want to tell you about Susan through my eyes. Susan is a woman for women. And I think that's like the highest compliment. She champions all things for women and girls, men too, but women and girls. And she's truly a woman for women. And she has been, as I mentioned, a mentor of mine for a long time. She's also the mom of a couple strong-willed kids, full contact sport kind. And she's a great mom. And it's not because of their accomplishments, because as y'all know, I don't measure parenting by accomplishments, right? Our kids are responsible for their accomplishments. Susan's a great mom because she accepts her kids. She works on helping them find their feelings and needs. And she shows up for them. And she's been on her own journey in her parenting along the way. And I've had the pleasure of sort of having a backseat, if you will, to some of it as we've traveled around the world and shared stories. And you know, we both have boys that I think we both call full contact sport. So Susan's also on the forefront of teaching women and girls to love themselves. And I sit here today telling y'all that I love myself fully. And it's really due to a lot of the work that I did with Susan. And if you want to know how to love yourself, you get on her email list. That's all I got to say. So let's continue. Susan's the author of a book, a best-selling book, Bear, and it's a 7-week program to transform your body, get more energy, feel amazing, and become the bravest, most unstoppable version of yourself. Her books inspired thousands of women to stop shrinking their bodies and start expanding their lives. And Susan has a companion book for young girls called Bold coming out in the near future. And I, for one, God, I can't wait for that book to hit the stands. I'm already thinking about, all the conversations I can have with mothers of daughters around that book. So we'll certainly be staying tuned for that. And as I mentioned, Susan's had a hand in many of my big audacious goals that I've reached for myself in my life. This podcast is no exception. So she believed in me well before I believed in myself. We sat in a tea room in Killarney, Ireland a few years ago and brainstormed about this podcast. And she looked me in the eye and she said with 100% conviction, Lisa, you can do this. And I knew in that moment it would happen for me. It took a little longer than I thought. But Susan, thank you and welcome.
Oh, for God's sake, now I'm going to cry. I'm like, oh my God, you had me at a woman for women. I'm like, oh, I feel so seen. I actually was just thinking about that. Like, I'm putting together a new speakers page and trying to come up with topics for corporate. And I was just like, I just want to talk to the women. Like, your female leadership deserves better. And I've always been a girl's girl. Like, give me my sisters. Like, yes. There's enough help in the world for our boys. Although they both our boys have needed all the help they could get from us for sure. But thank you for seeing me.
You should put that on your page. A woman for women.
I am going to.
All yours. All yours. So one of the things you talk about a lot is how girls' confidence drops between the ages of 8 and 14. And I think you even have a statistic, which was alarming, that it drops 30% during those years. Can you shed some light on that for us?
Yeah, sure. It is an alarming statistic. And when you think about, and this is compared to their male counterpart. So it drops 30% below the average male. And a lot of the research indicates that this is because of messaging from family of origin, culture at large, and that includes teachers and members of authority, coaches. And it's not because parents, teachers, and coaches are sitting around thinking like, how can we make our girls feel awful about themselves? It's because the patriarchy is in the air that we breathe. It's in everything. It's in the systems that we have. And so primarily for girls, the measurement of success has always been around beauty and weight. And so diet culture starts really young and permeates everything that we do. And so girls are constantly given the message that what they should be concerned with is measuring how they stack up beauty-wise and size-wise. And that, of course, causes their confidence to suffer. And they are much less likely to ask questions, raise their hands, go for leadership positions. And they're spending their precious capacity on dieting and figuring out how they can shrink themselves, literally.
Yeah. I had a front row seat to that for my childhood and spent a lot of years unraveling all that, what I now call nonsense that was going on.
Yeah. I mean, the average age a girl starts dieting is 8 years old. And that's primarily the reason why I decided to write Bold, because I thought, well, if we can get in front of this, I surely love working with women like you. But what if we could get in front of it and reach girls at that age when they're starting to compare their thighs to their best friend? And if they're on the swim team, scared to put their bathing suit on and all those things, if we can reach them sooner and say, hey, guess what? What your coach is telling you about how much you should weigh is nonsense, as you said.
Yes. It makes me think, of the work I often talk with parents about, which is our voice becomes their inner voice. And so it requires us to be mindful of what we're focusing on. So often we spend so much of our time as parents focusing on what our kids are not doing right or should stop doing. Stop doing that. Go, get your shoes on, put your clothes away, unpack your backpack. I asked you to put the dishes away. And we also need to focus on what they should be doing and realize that we become their inner voice.
It's so true. And so when you think about their confidence, girls' confidence plummeting 30%, it's because of that, because they start to absorb. I know I did. I didn't question my older sister. I didn't question people in authority who were like, oh, boy, you sure packed it on over Christmas break. I didn't question why they were saying it or if it was relevant to me. I just absorbed it and started saying it to myself. And that's what girls are doing.
Yeah, I can relate to that because, my family of origin, who I know meant well, there was constant talk about how my physical body presented itself. And it was never measured up. It never crossed the finish line. There was I had an incredible light about me and an energy and a being, and I was smart and I had all these other talents, but all of our conversation narrowed back to how my body was presenting itself and how it wasn't measuring up. And for many years, that no matter how successful I was, right? It all came back to, have I accomplished the right body weight yet? Does the scale say what it's supposed to say? Does it look like it's supposed to look? Yeah.
I mean, and when you think about how smart we are and how talented we are and how gifted we all are at so many different things, but it's a moving shell game. So how you're supposed to look, the appeal a woman is supposed to have, and the standard of beauty is an ever shifting shell game. And so it's an unattainable thing. So they can't come for your intellect, and they can't come for what's real. So let's go for something made up, the standard of beauty.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about pivoting off that. Let's talk about acceptance. So I talk a lot about the core need of acceptance. And I've created a math formula because I love me some math. And my formula is feelings plus needs equal behavior, right? So if our needs are met, our feelings are good, we have good or acceptable behavior. If we have unmet needs, that creates a lot of feelings. And when they bubble over, there's unacceptable bad behavior. I don't think any kids have bad behavior, but I know a lot of people like to focus on bad behavior. And I work with parents to become scuba divers, scuba down to the feelings and needs rather than snorkeling at the top with the behavior. Yep.
It's good.
So we're creating a generation of scuba divers. So one of the core basic needs of humans is acceptance. Do I fit in? Do you accept me as I am? The need for acceptance is strong in humans, particularly littles and teenagers and young adults. Do you see me as I am and still love me? Do I fit into this family? If my body is larger than everybody else's, do I feel as accepted as everybody else in the family? If I present differently, maybe I like to dress up and wear dresses. Maybe I'm a girl who only likes to wear pants. Maybe I don't want to wear blue jeans. Maybe dad and brother are athletic and I'm not, right? Do you accept me? Maybe I'm loud and clumsy. That was certainly my story. Maybe I'm shy and introverted. Maybe I melt down quickly and struggle to find joy. Do you accept me? So I feel like an area where our work really intersects, Susan. I feel like you are the queen of acceptance. And I wanted to just talk about how that showed up for you as a parent, how that shows up in your work, and what your thoughts are on acceptance.
Everything you just said was so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And I think that when my children, primarily Ryan, who you mentioned, who's now 22, but I mean, when he was young and full of feelings and unmet needs, as you would put it, and, was getting kicked out of parochial school, basically. The Sister Carlene had me on speed dial. It really was about, this kid who was differently wired, full of energy, couldn't sit still, bored. His needs were not being met because he was bored out of his mind in this classroom, and it was not the right structure for him. And it really was a journey of accepting that this is not a kid that is going to sit politely in class with his hands folded and be delighted during story time. That like accepting this kid that, like you said, would melt down, would, just have a different way of being than me. I was an A student who thrived in a classroom setting. So could I learn as a mother to accept a child who was the opposite of how I was growing up? And it was not until, I love that saying, let go or be dragged. I was getting drugged all over the place. And it was not until I surrendered and started to ask different questions of myself and started to let go of, as you're describing, snorkeling, and started to really consider, what does this kid need to thrive versus how can I get this kid to comply?
Yes, because that's dominant parenting.
Yes.
I'm going to control you. I'm going to use my power to come over you, and I'm going to control you to get the outcome I want.
And boy, oh boy, did that not work.
Yeah, that does not work with strong-willed kids, because the number one thing they need to feel is in control. And the number one way they feel in control is to give them choices. And dominant parenting is the antithesis of choices. You will do this. You will go to class tomorrow and you will sit at the desk and you will put your hands up on the desk and smile, or else.
Yeah, I
right?
tried that.
Yeah.
Failed miserably with that.
And what I teach, what I coach, what I espouse is peaceful parenting, which is where we use our power. We're still the peaceful leaders of the household. And this is what I saw you model for so many years, the peaceful leader of the household. But we use our power to come alongside our child. Right? So I don't know what this looks like because I wasn't this kid, but let me accept you as you are. And together, let's figure out what works. And I think that's really what I watched you do with Ryan, right?
Totally. I mean, that was the only way to survive, quite frankly, for either one of us to survive. And there were, I mean, I had to relearn that over and over and over again, because as they get older, the stakes get higher. And I noticed I would revert back to trying to be a dominant parent when I thought like, well, okay, now, we're talking about graduating from high school, or we're, like fill in the blank of whatever. And every single time I had to relearn, saying things like, you know what? If you don't want to graduate, that is absolutely your choice. And every time I would do that, he would then make a better choice. He would do things like, a whole year's worth of English in a weekend so that he could get the credits he needed to graduate. I mean, I have so many crazy stories. And now, as a result, he's like going to college and selling real estate. And I don't know if you know this, Lisa, he is enrolled in my life coach training university.
I saw that. I saw that and I did a double take.
He's like in class on Zoom, participating with me teaching. This was a kid who would put his forehead on the kitchen table so he didn't have to look at me. And now he's like, my mom is the bomb. Look at my mom. And it's a real testament to what you're teaching, which is let go or be dragged.
Yes.
You better learn how to peacefully lead, or you are not getting out of this well.
I imagine he feels incredibly accepted at 22 by himself, and not because that's what was modeled in the home. We may not like what you're doing, right? We're not. So to be clear, Susan's not, I'm going to put some words in your mouth here, but Susan's not espousing permissive parenting, right? Which we talked about in a previous episode, which is where we allow the child to use their power to come over us, right? We're the leaders and we're coming alongside them, but you accepted his style, his quirks, his behavior, his inability to traditionally learn in a way that now I'm guessing has him accepting himself, and his circle of people is a body of work of acceptance as well.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I would say he also feels very free to do it differently. Like when he decided to change schools and change majors and all these things, I was just very much like, okay, well, here's some things that I think you should consider, but ultimately it's your choice. And I was having to coach Scott, my husband, like, listen, all of this is forward movement. Like you have to keep your eye on, is this positive forward movement, even if it doesn't look like this linear path that we took, where we started college here and we graduated college here. And so, like I said, at every age, there's a different way to embody this. And so we actually didn't think it was a good idea for him to try to sell residential real estate, which is a very difficult industry that I was in before, but he wanted to do it while he was also going to school. And you know what? He's killing it. And Scott was like, oh, he's not going to finish school, or he's going to be too busy. And that hasn't proven to be the case.
I love that.
I know it's really fascinating to watch people thrive when you just let them do it, be who they are.
I want to talk about this too, Susan, because Susan also has a daughter who is a much more traditional, let's say, child.
Yeah.
Is a traditional learner, completely different personality. And she's found acceptance in your family as well by being a more traditional learner. And I'm sure she feels as accepted for her style as Ryan. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So Cora is also very strong-willed. However, she's an academic. So she loves the school setting and she really shines academically. And so I always, as a parent, just wanted to feed whatever gave them energy and whatever they were interested in. I didn't really care what it was. And so she's a musician and an artist and a writer, but she's also very interested in learning languages and all sorts of things. I will say what she does, even though she's a traditional learner and she got scholarships, and, any parent would feel very proud of those academic accolades and accomplishments. But, she wants to get an MFA. She wants to major. She has a double major in German and English and writes poetry. It drives her father crazy. He's like, how's she going to make any money? And I'm like, you just have to, she's already making money. People are paying her for her poetry. But it's sort of, again, even though she is a traditional learner, yes, she still wants to do all kinds of stuff with her degree and for a living. I mean, she and her father argue about politics and economics and world affairs, and I love it. But she definitely feels accepted that she can express her views that are very different than his, and he still loves her unconditionally.
Yeah. And accepted that she can find her own way in the world, right?
Yeah.
She's not going to, state school majoring in accounting, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's your passion.
Not at all. If that's your passion.
Right. But she's blazing her own trail.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from acceptance of how I present who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you have for parents, considering you're a champion of all women and children and acceptance as we are? What advice would you have for someone who's had a light bulb moment and is like, okay, how do I pivot towards accepting my kids as they present?
I would say first you have to question what you believe they should be doing. You really have to question whether or not you're imposing what you think is the right path, or your values that may or may not be right for them. Mm-hmm. And to really think about, something I think consistently, and I started thinking about this when they were kids, am I building a bridge or burning a bridge here?
Mm.
And it's so much of my early on behavior when I was trying to control my children, it was like slowly burning this bridge. And what you want to make sure you're doing is always building this bridge to communication. I mean, when they were in middle and high school, like they didn't, it was like, it wasn't like they were sitting in my lap and feeding me cherries and they thought I was the best, right? Like they were moody teenagers, just like all of them. But I was consistently like, how can I strengthen this? How can I build this bridge? And how can I, as a mom, just celebrate who they are instead of who I thought they should be? Who I thought my children should be was so basic compared to the amazing human beings that they are. And I would have missed that. Like if I had successfully controlled them, they would be like Target instead of Saks Fifth Avenue. They would be, right? It's like the boxes we try to put these kids in are so boring. Let them explore and be who they are.
Oh, I love that. Celebrate who they are, not who I wanted them to be, right? Mm-hmm. I talk all the time about letting go of being attached to the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. You can have goals for your kids. Of course, we do. We want great things for our children. Mm-hmm. But being attached to the outcome is so painful. Malcolm is 16 and I can just see how being attached to the outcome at this point, the white knuckling and the pain that would cause, because things take to right turns and left turns and mistakes happen and they get new ideas popped into their head. And having said all that, I can see with my son the foundation that I've laid by caring for so many years about his feelings and needs. Mm-hmm. And the way we connect is around feelings and needs and not behavior. Now, sometimes we have to talk about behavior,
Yeah.
because he's 16.
Yeah.
Right. But it's, remember those days? You feel for me?
Oh, I do. I remember the truck in the ditch and
Oh yeah.
I have more stories. Yeah.
We've had a couple things happen recently that,
Mhm.
But it's all comes back to scuba diving down to, what drove that behavior? What were the feelings and needs? So I just love that, Susan. And I love celebrate who they are because like you said, I mean, you're delighted with where this, where the destination this is pulling into.
And it's like, let yourself be fascinated about the human beings they're becoming.
Yes.
I look at Scott all the time and I'm like, you remember when, like, it's Cora? It's like, we thought she was going to be this girly girl, which there's nothing wrong with that, but this girly girl cheerleader, she couldn't be the furthest thing from that, and it's just like, you let yourself be amazed at how they express themselves.
Yes. I have a story I can share like that. So when I was younger, I was very social, very extroverted. I couldn't get out of the house on a Friday, Saturday night fast enough. I wanted, I mean, my FOMO, if I had to stay in for some reason, my FOMO kicked in big time. I remember like in high school at one point, I had a fever and I hid it from my family because I was not going to stay home on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And my son he's 16, he has a car, he very rarely goes out. He's a homebody. He's a little bit like my husband. He's introverted. And my husband and I have been, worried, oh, he's not getting out. He's not making any friends. So my son and I had a conversation about it recently. And he told me, Mom, I'm just not really excited about some of the things the kids are doing. And I want to avoid temptations. And I would just rather stay home and, game online and be with my friends. And he said, I like my house and I don't need to go out. And it was such a shift for me, because I was so convinced that he was missing out on things and that something was going wrong here. And with just a small shift, I was like, oh, do you need me to bring you brownies and fresh water? And, like,
JOMO, joy of missing out.
I feel like I won the lottery here,
Yeah.
Yes. The joy of missing out instead of the FOMO. And again, I'm open to who he is. And I don't want to push him out the door if that's not what his heart desires.
No, friend, because let me tell you something. You remember the stories of me having a tracker on Ryan's car because he was the kid stirring up all the stuff your kid's trying to stay away from.
Yes.
So it's like, let him enjoy being a homebody.
Yes. But that, when you were talking about Cora being a cheerleader, and because Cora's amazing. I mean, she's going to change the world. And I'm so glad you didn't force her into cheerleading because
and let me tell you, I have flashbacks of remembering like when they would have these talent contests in elementaries, like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and the stuff she would come up with to do instead of being in like the group dance. It's just like funny to me now that I know her as a 20-year-old that she was always going to do her own thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I really do believe, and this is getting a little woo-woo maybe, but I really do believe that our children are their own souls. They come to earth to have their own experience. And we're blessed to guide their soul for X amount of years. They're not ours to own. They're not our property. They're not our trophy. They pick us to come and have this experience, but they're their own souls.
Yeah, they really are. And you never know what their journey is because we're only on it for a small amount of I mean, hopefully a long time, but right. We're only, when they leave the house, I mean, I joke about it. I was like, Ryan's never coming back. He's over here every day, Lisa, soaking up my color printer ink and stealing my stamps and my energy drinks. But he has his own apartment.
Dropping his dog off for you to babysit, right?
Dropping his dog off to babysit. But, we never know what they're supposed to experience. And it may be very contrary to our plans.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Susan, that's great. So tell me, I want to ask you, give us a couple takeaways of positive habits we can bring in the home to boost our kids' self-esteem.
Okay, number one, you got to learn to like yourself. Our kids learn so much from observing us. So if you are tearing your own self down through the words that you speak and the way that you treat yourself, your children absorb that and think that that's how life is or how one should treat oneself. So, especially moms, the number one thing is get right with yourself. Learn how to talk to your own self like you are a beloved child. That is hands down.
I couldn't agree more. I say all the time, our kids don't learn through what we say, they learn through what we do. Modeling is the most powerful tool we have as a parent. And we're modeling all the time, right? Kids don't have a filter right from wrong. They just learn. In this family, we handle stress by yelling or by, punishing or by taking a break until we're regulated. They don't have a filter of that's right or wrong. They just say, this is what the Hyatt family does. And that's, so I love that. Yeah. Get right with yourself. Treat yourself like a beloved child.
That's probably my number one tip. And then my number two tip is along those lines, move yourself, sweat. If you want to be in the right frame of mind to consistently parent peacefully, we are creatures that are designed to move and we store emotion in our bodies. And if we aren't regularly moving to release that, that's going to make us sluggish and slow and sick. And I can tell you that I was a non-exerciser. And the thing that got me to move was realizing that Ryan's energy was so big that if I was gonna go toe to toe, I better bring it. And the only way I was gonna have enough energy to keep up was to take care of myself in that way.
I love that. I talk all the time. Motion changes emotion and self-regulation, which, we need, we have to model regulation for our kids before they learn it. It's movement creates regulation. So I love that. And I also really love you said, build the bridge, don't tear the bridge down. Such a great metaphor.
Building or burning it. And I still have moments where I was like, oh, I just took a torch to that bridge. I better do some repair work here.
Yes. I love that you said that. Thank you for saying that because people, the real world peaceful parenting community, our hashtag is progress, not perfection. Nobody's a perfect parent. Nobody gets it right. I don't care how enlightened. I don't care how many followers. I don't care how much, it's all about, we're all going to lose our shiz once in a while. All of us. I mean, that's why there's no cameras here at the Peaceful Parent, right? Because let me tell you,
there's no documentary happening.
There will be no reality show going here. Although I think the Hyatt Riot reality show would have been fun. But we're all going to lose it. So then it's repair and recovery. And I burnt that bridge down. Let me go build it back up. All bridges can be rebuilt.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Susan, thank you so much. This was amazing. And I know, everybody listening is like, wow, what just happened there?
Who is this lady? And who is this Ryan? No, thank you so much for having me. Never did I ever think I would be invited on a podcast to talk about parenting, quote unquote, success. So I'm honored to be here.
You're an amazing parent. So thank you. And an amazing leader. And I really do love you. So thanks for taking the time. And thank you. I'm honored that you're my first guest. And
I'm honored. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I hope you loved that as much as I did. Again, Susan Hyatt. Susan, tell us where we can find you in case people want to, grab a copy of Bold or watch your TED Talk or learn more about you.
Sure. My hub is shyatt.com, SHYATT.com. And from that URL, you can find the books, the TEDx, the social media, all the podcast, all those things.
Yeah. Please visit shyatt.com. And when you get there, be ready because it is like a joyride. There's a lot going on over there. There's something for everybody, and you're going to love it. So enjoy that. All right, everybody. It was fantastic being with you today. And until we meet again, I'm wishing us all peaceful parenting. To celebrate the launch of the Real World Peaceful Parenting podcast, I'm going to be giving away a $50 gift card to one of my many Peaceful Parent courses. I'm going to be giving away one gift card to 10 lucky listeners who subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review, although I sure hope you love the show. I want your honest feedback so I can create an awesome show that provides tons of value. Visit www.thepeacefulparent.com/podcast launch to learn more about the contest and how to enter. That's www.thepeacefulparent.com/podcast launch. I'll be announcing the winners on the show in an upcoming episode, so stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to Real World Peaceful Parenting. If you want more info on how you can transform your parenting, visit thepeacefulparent.com. See you soon.